Clapperboard Jaws, 1975, then and now. Back in 1975, one movie completely changed Hollywood forever. After people watched it, millions suddenly became terrified of going into the ocean. Beaches didn't feel relaxing anymore, they felt dangerous. And that movie was Jaws. What started as a thriller about a killer shark quickly became the very first true summer blockbuster in movie history. The music, the suspense, the unforgettable attacks, audiences had never experienced anything like it before. But while the shark became legendary, the cast behind the movie also went through incredible real-life journeys filled with fame, success, struggles, and heartbreak. So today, let's head back to Amity Island and take a look at the cast of Jaws then and now. Shark Roy Scheider, Chief Martin Brody. When audiences first met Chief Brody, he didn't feel like a typical Hollywood action hero. He wasn't overly tough, fearless, or flashy. He just felt like a regular guy trying to protect his family and his town from something absolutely terrifying lurking in the water. And that realism is exactly what made the character so unforgettable. The man behind Chief Brody was Roy Scheider. Before Jaws, Roy was already respected as a talented actor, but this movie completely changed his career and turned him into a worldwide star. His famous line, "You're gonna need a bigger boat," became one of the most iconic quotes in film history. After Jaws, Roy starred in major movies like The French Connection and All That Jazz, and later returned for Jaws 2. Unlike many celebrities of that era, Roy was known for being calm, professional, and incredibly grounded. He cared more about acting than fame or attention. But in the early 2000s, his health began declining seriously. After battling several illnesses, Roy Scheider sadly passed away in 2008 at the age of 75. Even today, many fans still believe he was the true heart and soul of Jaws. Shark Robert Shaw Quint. If there's one character people can never forget from Jaws, it's Quint, the rough, fearless shark hunter with the scarred face, wild eyes, and unforgettable voice. The man who brought Quint to life was Robert Shaw. Every time Robert appeared on screen, he instantly created tension. He had this intense presence that made every scene feel dangerous and unpredictable. And of course, there's the legendary USS Indianapolis monologue, which many people still consider one of the greatest speeches ever delivered in movie history. But behind the scenes, Robert Shaw was a very complicated man. He was incredibly intelligent, loved literature, and was also a successful novelist and playwright. At the same time, he struggled heavily with alcoholism and had a reputation for being difficult and unpredictable. During the filming of Jaws, Robert constantly clashed with Richard Dreyfuss. The two actors reportedly didn't get along at all, but strangely enough, that real-life tension made their chemistry on screen even more believable. Sadly, only a few years after Jaws became a worldwide phenomenon, Robert Shaw died from a heart attack in 1978 at just 51 years old. Even decades later, Quint remains one of the most iconic characters in cinema history. Shark Richard Dreyfuss's Matt Hooper. The actor who brought humor, intelligence, and youthful energy to Jaws was Richard Dreyfuss as Matt Hooper. What's crazy is that Richard almost turned down the movie because he thought it was going to fail. But after seeing an early cut of another movie he worked on and panicking about his future career, he quickly changed his mind and joined Jaws. And honestly, that decision changed his entire life. Hooper quickly became a fan favorite thanks to his charm, humor, and nervous energy. The chemistry between Richard, Roy Scheider, and Robert Shaw became one of the strongest parts of the movie. After Jaws, Richard's career exploded. He starred in classics like Close Encounters of the Third Kind and even won an Academy Award for The Goodbye Girl. But fame also came with serious struggles. Richard openly battled addiction and personal problems during the height of his success in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Thankfully, he eventually recovered and rebuilt both his life and career. Over the years, he became known not only for his acting talent but also for his honesty, humor, and outspoken personality. To this day, many people still see him as the lovable shark expert from Jaws. Shark Lorraine Gary Ellen Brody. While most people remember the shark attacks and intense ocean scenes, Ellen Brody brought warmth and emotional balance to the story. The actress behind Ellen was Lorraine Gary. She made the character feel incredibly real, like an actual wife and mother trying to hold her family together while chaos exploded around them. After the massive success of Jaws, Lorraine returned in Jaws 2 and later Jaws: The Revenge, becoming one of the few actors to stay connected to the franchise for years. But unlike many Hollywood stars, Lorraine eventually stepped away from acting and chose a quieter life outside the spotlight. She later focused on family life and humanitarian work alongside her husband Sidney Sheinberg, one of Hollywood's most influential entertainment executives. Even though she didn't continue chasing blockbuster fame, her role in Jaws guaranteed her a permanent place in movie history. Shark Murray Hamilton, Mayor Larry Vaughn. Every great movie needs somebody audiences love to hate, and in Jaws, that was definitely Mayor Vaughn. The actor behind the stubborn mayor who refused to close the beaches was Murray Hamilton. With his fake smile, colorful jackets, and endless excuses, he perfectly represented greed and politics getting in the way of public safety. Every time he appeared on screen, audiences became more frustrated with him. But in real life, Murray was reportedly warm, funny, and incredibly respected by other actors. Before Jaws, he had already appeared in major films like The Graduate. After the success of Jaws, he returned once again in Jaws 2 and continued acting in television and film throughout the following years. Sadly, Murray Hamilton passed away from cancer in 1986 at the age of 63. But even today, Mayor Vaughn is still remembered as one of the most frustrating characters in movie history. Shark Susan Backliny, Chrissy Watkins. One of the most terrifying opening scenes ever filmed belongs to Jaws, and the woman in that unforgettable scene was Susan Backliny. Her character, Chrissy Watkins, became the shark's very first victim, and the image of her being violently dragged through the dark ocean terrified audiences instantly. What makes the scene even more impressive is that Susan wasn't originally a major actress. She actually worked as an animal trainer and stunt performer. Because of that, she performed much of the physically demanding water stunt work herself, which made the entire sequence feel horrifyingly real. Even though Susan never became a giant Hollywood superstar afterward, horror fans always remembered her because of that iconic scene. Over the years, she attended fan conventions and was constantly praised for helping create one of the greatest horror openings ever made. Susan Backliny sadly passed away in 2024, but her unforgettable scene in Jaws continues to live on nearly 50 years later. Shark Steven Spielberg, the young director who changed Hollywood forever. Today, Steven Spielberg is considered one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. But during the making of Jaws, he was just a young director desperately trying to prove himself. And honestly, the production was a complete nightmare. The mechanical shark constantly broke down, the budget kept growing out of control, and many people on set genuinely believed the movie would fail horribly. Spielberg himself became so stressed that he thought his career might already be over before it even started. But strangely enough, all those technical problems accidentally made the movie even scarier. Since the shark rarely worked properly, Spielberg had to rely on suspense, camera angles, music, and imagination instead of constantly showing the creature. And that creative decision completely changed filmmaking forever. After Jaws, Spielberg went on to direct legendary films like E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Jurassic Park, and Schindler's List. From a nervous young filmmaker terrified of failure, he became one of the most powerful directors in Hollywood history, and it all started with one giant shark in the ocean. Nearly 50 years later, Jaws is still considered one of the most influential movies ever made. It didn't just scare audiences, it completely changed Hollywood forever. It created the modern summer blockbuster, inspired countless shark movies, and proved that suspense could be even more terrifying than actually showing the monster itself. But beyond the legendary shark attacks and unforgettable music, it was the cast that truly gave the movie its soul. From Roy Scheider's grounded performance as Chief Brody, to Robert Shaw's intense and unforgettable Quint, to Richard Dreyfuss's bringing humor and energy as Hooper, every actor helped turn Jaws into something timeless. Sadly, some of these stars are no longer with us, but their performances continue to live on generation after generation. And even today, the second people hear that iconic theme music, they still think twice before going into the water. So after all these years later, would you dare swim alone in the ocean? Water wave.